hope you're doing good today. So it's actually tonight for me, as I'm filming live. This is super late. It's a really unusual time for me to film, but it was just on my mind and heart to go ahead and get this out. So I hope you enjoy the message. So I've had this concept, this feeling around the concept, I guess. It's just been a really strong message for me. Like a prompting for me to look into, and so I did. And what this concept is interference. In my time, I don't want to say meditative time because I don't really practice intentional meditation per se, but I'm very contemplative. And so in my time where I am trying to sort out all the things I've been through, my experiences, especially recent experiences, right? And as I'm trying to continue to make sense of things and to glean insights and pull lessons from my experiences, I come back time and again to feeling like there has been some type of divide created between myself. When I say myself, I mean like my higher self or my instinct, right? My gut instinct, my intuition. There's been a divide created through these experiences I've had between that and just a natural flow of life where you are not having to be so contemplative. It's kind of like when everything is in alignment as it should be and you're not under pressure, so to speak. You don't feel like life is chaotic and confusing, and you don't have brain fog and all this stuff that comes from very challenging times. We'll just sum it up and say that. Then life is just sort of in a state of flow. It's more dynamic, and I feel like that is very much a good description of nature as God intends, because you can see it everywhere. Change is pretty much the only constant in this life. And so we are a part of nature. We're part of the divine creation. And as such, we follow suit in like manner, right? And so what happens, I've mentioned before, a trauma response that we can experience where you're kind of like frozen. Not only physically, but also and especially cognitively, right? Your psyche just sort of freezes up. And there's a lot of different reasons for that, but ultimately you wind up feeling stuck. You just feel like you just can't move on, and I think that even especially today in modern times with our fast pace, everything is just immediate, I don't know what that's really doing to the virtue of patience, I'll say that, but it's like you can't just, you can't continue on with this flow, this pace. And so you just wind up sort of feeling lost. It's like in your mode of being frozen or feeling stuck or being in a brain fog or whatever you want to call it. You're just not able to keep up, sometimes even with the demands of life. And so that gets really difficult. I know that in researching psychology, I've read all kind of different books on spirituality and philosophy and psychology just throughout the years. It's been a great interest of mine, a hobby. One of the main indicators of there being an actual problem in that a person should seek therapy especially is if whatever issues a person's dealing with, because we all have issues, right? We all have challenges. We all have just crazy seasons in life. But I think one of the main indicators that is stated officially, right, academically or however out there, is that if what you're dealing with is so impactful that your life is impacted greatly, in terms of just being able to function. It's like you can't function anymore, then at that point, that's a great indicator that you need some assistance. You need help, right? So, I think what's difficult is, and it does help to go to therapy. I'll say that if you can find a good therapist, and that's difficult sometimes. But if you can find a good therapist, it can definitely be very helpful. And I recommend, certainly looking into that if you have interest. But I think, you have to really use discernment there, whether it's a therapist or a life coach or whoever you go to, and you share, the innermost your innermost feelings and thoughts and everything with, it can be very damaging, and set you back if it's not the right person for the situation, even if they mean well, So I just encourage you to really use discernment there. But just this essence of being stuck and of being frozen and life kind of feeling like it's coming to a halt, or like you're not really even living. That's a very big indicator that something is wrong. And yet, unfortunately, when you're dealing with wolves in sheep's clothing, which is primarily what my channel is about, coming out of a situation like that, right? Whether it be an individual or a group or whatever, we are conditioned during our time with or around wolves in sheep's clothing. We are often conditioned to normalize a lot that we shouldn't be normalizing, and that can delay us going to therapy or seeking help. And so, especially if I think part of it too is just the confusion that if you have been doing things the way you always have and they've worked in the past, life has just been fine in the past and gone, and then all of a sudden now it's just not working, and you can't really pinpoint and put your finger on why. That's hard. But ultimately, we know that people who live a life of deception, if you are involved with a person like that in any capacity, you will be affected. And this is where you start to experience the slowing down of life, the pace of life, and the perception of it coming to a halt, the perception of feeling frozen. You're not really frozen, it's just, in your mind, this life force energy just sort of feels like it comes to a halt. And so that's essentially what it is that you are, your connection with reality and your automatic innate processes of being able to connect dots and make sense of things, that has been interrupted because you are conditioned to not trust your own reality, but instead to trust the narrative of this other person. And again, my understanding, from what life has taught me, is that there's a motive. There's a reason for that, okay? For them to want to replace your reality with their narrative. And so, but ultimately there's this interference, there's an interruption, there's an interjection, okay, that takes place. And so, and it's kind of like, I think this is also why, if you can get time away from a particular group or person, let me turn this light down, I feel like I've got it way too bright. If you can get time away, and be alone, if you get enough time away, then things will start moving again in your mind. It'll start clicking again. And it's kind of like you start to, the fog lifts, okay? And ironically, you can start to feel better as well. You're going to feel just less under pressure because you're not under pressure when you're by yourself, right? unless there are remnants of, some type of critical, messaging going on in your mind. But if you don't have that, then of course you're going to feel the benefits of not feeling so pressured, under pressure, and things like that. So let's dive into this concept of interference. Okay, so to interfere, looking this up online, it means to interject, to block, or get in the way. Okay, and I'm thinking of like radio waves, or a signal of some kind. When there's interference, it's because there's something more there, right? Coming into the picture. And so it's kind of like a contamination, okay, if you think about that. So from the online etymology dictionary, it says to intermingle or mix different things, okay? And that's really important. That right there is a big clue. That when in moving forward, okay, let me just say this, moving forward with hopefully a sharpened sense of discernment from not only living our experiences, but reflecting upon and assessing and doing deep dives on our experiences to make sense of them, okay, and extract some wisdom. Ideally, we can recognize much more quickly when we start to sense this interference in the future, and that should pop up and catch our attention and be a red flag that there's something different, okay? And I think that we want to embrace this concept of unity to such a degree that we gaslight ourselves into thinking that everyone else is like us, especially if we are honest people. It's not like we're perfect by any means, but I'm specifically talking about transparency and honesty versus deception, okay? And hidden motives and things like that. But I think we want to believe that everyone's like us, and when you experience just all these confusing things and chaos and the feeling like your life has had some type of contamination or interference, but you can't put your finger on it, that should, going forward, very quickly signal to us, even without having the details. And that's hard because we want to have the concrete evidence, because we so much want to give people the benefit of the doubt. I know I always have, but if you're truly wanting to live with a sharpened discernment, then you have to trust it. And I think that a big sign is just this sense of there being this slowing down of your trusting your own experience, trusting what you have witnessed, trusting the conclusions that you draw about what you've just experienced or witnessed or whatever it is. I talk a lot about not making assumptions, but I think that small assumptions on a regular basis, like daily, that kind of has to happen. We kind of have to draw conclusions just about, if I see this means this happened right in front of my eyes. Just a part of living and utilizing your senses. That gets interrupted. And so going forward, if there's some kind of slowdown there where you're just really having to focus and evaluate, can I really trust myself? Then there's a reason. And I love the fact that it describes online, again, the online etymology dictionary, interference as to intermingle or mix different things. So if you look at this through the spiritual lens, you could just simply say that even though you can't pinpoint it always, right away, there is a different energy or essence or spirit in my midst. Because prior to being around this person or around this group or in this situation, everything was flowing. Everything was just automatic and intuitive and just natural, as God intended. And so look for the slowdown, look for the questioning yourself, look for just feeling like life is coming to a halt, confusion, brain fog. Look for all those kind of things. The feeling that there's interference, okay? Even if it's just a feeling, because a lot of times those concrete points that you can, for sure identify, they don't happen until later. So, yes. So the figurative sense is from the 1630s, and it's to meddle with and or oppose unrightfully. Okay, I found it really interesting too. To interfere. It's from the Old French interferere, meaning to exchange blows, to strike each other. From the Latin ferere, to knock or to strike. Okay, also related, the Latin ferrare, to bore or to pierce. So, kind of a powerful origin to that word. Okay, so let me share this quote with you all. I was just flipping through this old Zen book I have. Okay, from 2023. I read quotes out of it all the time. This is from November 30th, 2023. It says, if we can really understand the problem, the answer will come out of it, because the answer is not separate from the problem. Okay, this is from Jiddu Krishnamurti. So I was looking up the word answer, and it's from the Proto-Indo-European root part. You have the A-N-T, and then you have the last part of the word is from Swerian, meaning to swear. Again, this is the word answer. Okay, so Swerian, to swear. And to swear is to take or utter an oath, to make a solemn declaration with an appeal to divinity. So here's the thing. When you think about problems and answers, solutions, right? And how it says, if you can understand the problem, the answer will come out of it. It's kind of like our experience. It's kind of like we're trying to figure out what happened to us, why we are changed. And I think that I think we are often focused on the problem, trying to figure out what the problem has been, if we can just really pinpoint that, then it's kind of like obvious. It goes hand in hand what the solution is, right? You're just kind of looking at, opposites. So I love how this says that when you break down the word answer, it's from swearing, again, to make a solemn declaration with an appeal to divinity. You have two types of people, many more, but in this aspect, let's just kind of simplify it and say two. You have people who operate in the spirit of interference, okay? And these are people who are, they're liars, people who live a life of deception, okay? It's just natural to them. It's just so natural that it's smooth, and we don't often recognize it, okay? Because it's just they're so comfortable living this way. We don't sense or pick up anything to indicate otherwise. But people who operate in this spirit of deception are the people who have a reason to do so. And these motives are hidden. Otherwise, there's no need for deception, right? That's what deception's about, is hiding something. And so, in their efforts to hide something or many things, manipulation becomes a tactic, okay? Obviously, if there wasn't something to gain from their relationship with you, then there wouldn't be a relationship with you, with these people, okay? So, your experience on the receiving end of being manipulated and lied to is that your natural function of intuition, your alarm bells, they get conditioned to no longer work properly. And this is experienced as interference, okay? But you don't really know to identify it as such or to call it that. It's just you have these strange symptoms that you don't even recognize as symptoms. You're just basically thinking, what's going on? Something, I used to be able to recall words easier, and now I can't. I used to have a great memory, and now I don't have a good memory anymore. I used to be able to make decisions, very confidently, and now I can't. It's just like all these things that used to come natural to you no longer come natural to you. And that's what your experience is. So there's an interference with, again, the natural flow of things for you. So in your quest to figure out what's going on, you're asking, and seeking the answer to this awful experience. You're looking for the problem. Is what you're like, what's wrong? What's wrong with me? But see, if you're like me, that's you're turning the focus on yourself, looking for the problem in yourself, but the problem is not in you. Okay? You're experiencing interference. Okay? So, yes. So let's take a look. Let's move forward, and then we'll wrap it all up. But one of the definitions of interference is also the word interpose. So I looked up interpose. This means to place between, cause to intervene, or come between other things. So there's this interjection, there's this insertion, there's this something that it's like a blockage, okay? So inter means between, poser means to place. So if you reverse this for interpose, it means to place between, okay? So these people, all their tactics, the wolves in sheep's clothing, okay? Essentially, what they're causing is they're coming between you and something else, okay? What is this? What is this something else? I would say your instincts, like I was talking about earlier, but also, your sanity, your cognitive normal function, and your ability to think clearly, your peace, all this stuff, okay? And again, you're questioning, the daylight side of yourself. One of the things that, even in reflection, you may be able to do is to look back, if you're out of the situation, which I hope you are, is, were you able to observe this group or this person, whoever it is, that you were affected by? Can you observe a spirit of interference within them when they interact with others? Because it's kind of like that whole, you can't see the trees for the forest, that old phrase, that old saying. If you could just kind of just go through and just clear out some of the trees that are just right in front of you, you can kind of start to see, but it's very true. When you're in it, you just can't see the bigger picture, okay? But if you can look beyond, again, and observe them interacting with others, a lot of times these people who are manipulative, they'll use these same tactics on other people, and you can see it that way when it's not being done on you. And then that helps you to recognize, are they using these tactics on you, okay? But essentially, all of this is just an interference of the natural order of things. So this was also really interesting. The word interpose, from the late 14th century, posen. Okay, this means to suggest something is so. And that's a part of the manipulation of your mind, is to plant these subtle seeds of suggestion so that you think that you are the one making the decisions that you're making, or perceiving the things that you're perceiving the way you are. You think that it's all your own doing, but it's because you've been manipulated. Okay? Just suggestions. Just consider that. So, in looking up the word between, because remember, interference is related to interpose, which means to place between. So looking up the word between, it means in the space which separates, okay, or in the midst, So to separate means to remove, detach, or divide, to sever the connection or association. And then you have the Latin separatus or separatus, to pull apart. You have se meaning apart. And this is related to secret, the word secret, which we're going to talk about. And then you have the latter part of the root origin of separate, which is parare, meaning to make ready or to prepare. So you have this essence of separation, which could be good or bad. This is where you can pull in Romans 8:28, okay? Because you're going through this experience of interference with the natural processes of your cognitive abilities, your intuition, and all this stuff, okay? Your instincts. All that's been interfered with. There's been a separation. Something's come between all of this within you, okay? So there's the separation. This is the bad part of it that has been created, this great divide. And yet, we know that to be made ready, or to be prepared, set apart, to be prepared, can be a good thing. So again, we can see how there's verses, even Bible verses, I'll drop them in the description, about being set apart. And even brokenness, specifically how that can prepare us, okay, spiritually. So, not that we want to go looking for it, it's just the whole part of the human experience, unfortunately, and how God can use that to your benefit. So, like I was saying, looking at this word to separate, breaking this word down into parts, you have the se meaning a part, and it was related to secret. So in looking up secret from the late 14th century, it says that which is hidden from human understanding. And I thought, from human understanding? You know, I certainly don't think that's how we use that word today. Secret is not beyond human understanding in our everyday language, right? But in looking at the origins, it is related to what is hidden from human understanding. And I think that that's just interesting to contemplate through a spiritual lens, because it's just humbling in a way that should give us hope and should inspire us and encourage us. It's from the Latin secretum, meaning a mystery, and also from secretus, meaning set apart, okay? And like I said, this should inspire us. I really hope this encourages you. It did me, to understand that, you know, going through these crazy things that we go through sometimes, and you know, we try to make sense of them and everything. We are changed. We are certainly changed. But if you think about things through a spiritual lens, you can consider things like a higher purpose. You know, your life being prepared, for a higher purpose. And the process maybe being such that, maybe it wasn't instigated by God, maybe it was the darkness, but God can use that, almost like just looking and saying, okay, who's been through what, and well, this one is prepared. Let's use this one here, And so, I thought that was really interesting with the word secret, from secretus or secretus, meaning set apart. And then also, furthermore, it's from, let's see if I can say this, Secernere maybe, S-E meaning on one's own, and then you have cernere meaning to separate on one's own. Okay, also to sieve, S-I-E-V-E, discriminate and distinguish. So you think about the concept of being distinguished, right? Or like a sieve. I'm thinking about like flour, and you're just using this little mesh to separate the finest parts of the flour from the clumps. And so it's kind of like a refinement process, essentially. Okay. I'm going to share Bible verses. I wrote them down here, but I'll drop them in the description. And so yes. Yeah. Space. Okay, this is really interesting. So interference is to strike in the space between. Okay? So when you look up space, the etymology of that is amount or extent of time. Okay? It's also, physical space and room and all this too, but it explicitly says amount or extent of time. So it's from the Latin spatium, meaning room, area, distance, or stretch of time. So I was thinking, I've completely heard of this relation of space and time. So sure enough, I looked it up, and it's from Einstein's theory of relativity, that space and time are not separate entities, but they are fundamentally linked. If this is true, let me just share this with you. We are told in the Christian Bible, 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 17, to pray without ceasing. Okay? So that's a way that you can spend your time, is in communion with, conversation with God. And think about this. If theoretically, okay, if all of our time, because it says pray without ceasing, okay, like constantly, essentially. If all of our time was spent praying, would there be any space for someone to strike with a suggestion or a manipulation, And I'm not sharing this in the sense of blaming us that we weren't praying enough and that's why this happened or anything like that. I'm sharing this as just food for thought, something to get the wheels turning, to refine our discernment going forward. That's all. Because I think that the position of everything happening for a reason has been comforting for me. So, yes. So again, to interpose is to suggest, and to interfere also means to interpose. Okay, this is also on the Merriam-Webster definition. Then you have to intervene and intercept. So enter, I-N-T-E-R, means between. And then when you're thinking about intervene, you have venere, which means to go or to come. So to come between. Okay. So it comes down to, could we strengthen our bond and close this space between us and our instincts, our God-given instincts, and our even closing the space between us and our Heavenly Father, just utilizing our time in a more intentional, conscious manner. Staying focused enough, steadfast, so that there won't be, going forward, any space for a wolf in sheep's clothing to come in and to interject, intervene, intercept, to strike between, to suggest. None of that, right? If you're relating space and time here, this is where you can harness your time to constrict the space and, ironically, relieve the pressure that they put on us. They put pressure on us. So it's like, I thought this was really cool relation here between all this. But so the space between, if you think about this concept of space between things, it's comes, another word is gap, okay? So if you think about the concept of this, it's essentially unfilled space or an interval, okay, an interruption. You have interrumpere, meaning to break apart, to break off, and to break through, okay? Really cool. There's a song by Sonic Flood that I love. I haven't heard in a while, but it says, the lyrics, it says, brokenness is what I long for. Brokenness is what I need. Brokenness is what you want from me. So take my heart and form it. Take my mind and transform it. Take my will and conform it to yours, O Lord. It's a beautiful song. And I would certainly say it's related to Psalm 51. I wrote 1 through 17 too, if you wanted to read that. But it's, if you read Psalm 51 1 through 17, it's talking about being contrite, which means essentially to have remorse because we are humbled by our own sins and failures, and we are therefore seeking after God. Again, we're not to blame. It's not our fault to fall victim to a manipulator, a liar, a deceiver, a wolf in sheep's clothing. It's not our fault. But God does use our brokenness. There's a book that I shared with my elementary art students years ago. I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's called The Perfect Square, I think. And it's where the square piece of paper gets demolished, ripped apart or whatever, and then put back together. And it's never the same again. We did this in our art class, this was the project. I handed out these beautiful, and it had to be beautiful, because we think that we are whole and complete as is with our little human ego. We think that's it. When you're in the forest with all the trees, you can't see the forest, you don't know there's more. You just think, you're that tree and that's it, and you're whole and complete. And so this origami paper that I purchased had beautiful different patterns and designs, and I passed those out and told the kids to just demolish it. And some of them, crumpled it up and stomped on it, and some of them got the scissors out and chopped it up, and others ripped it up and all this other stuff, right? And after they did that, I read them the book. And it was very touching, to them, and it was a really, really cool art project. But they had to put it back together, they didn't expect that. And so obviously they had a real example that they could never make it look the same again, but they could make it into something beautiful, and God can do that with us. And it's kind of like you don't really know what you can become or how whole you really can be until you've been broken. It's kind of like the concept of being whole, you think of oneness, okay, one piece. But then when you're broken, you become fragmented, which I know this is a concept in psychology too, and treatment and everything, but I'm looking through the spiritual lens today. So I hope you can glean some good insights through that lens. But when you're broken, now you're no longer one piece, you're multiple pieces, right? You're fragmented. So it's like a paradox. On one hand, you are broken, but in another sense, you're more than you were, because now you're two. You're not just one piece anymore. You're two. You're more. And that's kind of how it is when you go on the hero's journey. I'm tired, y'all. It's really late. It's like midnight. No, it's like 1 a.m. Yeah, I just checked my clock. So my contacts are all dried out. If you see me doing my eyes all funny, that's what that is. Yeah, it's like you're two pieces now, but you're essentially more. It's like I'm going back to my elementary school teaching days. Two's greater than one. So you see what I'm saying here? It's like a paradox, right? Yeah. So it was your ego that thought you were whole and complete, in your singleness, in your self, little s self, your little one piece self. And then along came this interference, this strike that broke you. And now it's kind of like, how are you going to look at it? You're going to look at it like you're broken, or are you going to look at it like there's more? You've been expanded. And now you're seeing the forest. Now you are the forest. Now you're not the rain droplet anymore. Now you're the sea. You're a part of that now. You see. It's kind of like this opened your eyes. This experience can, if you'll sit with it long enough and open your heart to it long enough, it can open your eyes to see that you are more. And you are expanded in that way. And that you just thought you were whole and complete back here. But that was just your little S self. See? So, yes. I'm going to take a look at this here. So I wrote the word solid. Solid means not empty or hollow or hardened. From soul, S-O-L, meaning whole. Okay, solid meaning whole. And then the word part means a portion of a whole. Okay, you see what I'm saying? It's like by yourself you can be whole, but when you're not by yourself, when you're broken, now you see that you are a part of a greater whole. So you're still whole, but you're expanded. And there's more to you, and you're not having to walk the path alone anymore. Now you have identified, and you've been made conscious of the divine spark within you. And you can embrace that consciously. And that is your archetypal, but actual and real numinous helper right there inside of you. And so, yes, so I put the truth is that real wholeness is being a part of the whole of God, right? Think about in the Christian Bible, it talks about how we are all part of the body of Christ, and also Jesus says, that He is the vine, we are the branches. So, yes, essentially, brokenness means you have woken up to your true nature, your true and real nature, which is there's much more to who you really are. And this is how you take your healing to the next level and how you step into your true power through God's grace and love, right? So I hope this has been encouraging for you. I hope it's been enlightening. I hope that it got the wheels turning most of all and just gave you some things to think about. I thank you so much for coming along to hear the message, and I hope that you have a beautiful day. I'll see you again very soon. bye.